This isn't Gorr. Or at least it isn't the Gorr of the comic books, of Jason Aaron's Thor, God of Thunder. Sure, he looks like him, acts kinda like him too, and they both share a love for black goop. But there are fundamental differences here. Differences I've not really seen discussed much. Differences which I think give us a window into the very mixed response this latest MCU film has provoked. To the point that if Nando v Movies was still making his Villain Isn't Villain series, I'm sure he would have beaten me to the punch, and released a similar, probably better video. But he hasn't. So let's talk about these Gorrs, the stories they appear in, and the trap many a Thor 4 More Thor viewer has fallen into as a result. Full spoilers for that film, by the way, in case that wasn't obvious. And it probably bears mentioning, just in case anyone's watching this in the distant future, that this film's only just come out. So I can't really show you exactly what I'm talking about all the time, since there's not much in the way of publicly released footage. That also means I'm going from memory on a lot of this. But enough disclaimers, let's talk about Gorr in Love and Thunder. I think it's fair to say that people generally liked this villain, but wished the film had placed a greater focus on him. More scenes, more god butchering, and so forth. Because, at the end of the day, this is inarguably a film about Thor. Bale's performance is a solid one, and despite a baffling amount of whinging over the lack of tentacles, most seem impressed by the character's visual design and on-screen presence. Gorr is a threat, and he feels like one, mentally and physically. And it's precisely because these aspects work so well that there's this idea that Love and Thunder wasted him, wasted the character, and therefore wasted the potential of the storyline it adapts. Because at first it does appear that Love and Thunder is attempting to adapt that already classic story from Aaron's run, wherein Gorr and Thor clash across the years and across the universe. But that's not really the whole story. So for the next, like 30 minutes or so I guess, we're going to take a discursive journey, looking at the differences in these two stories, the challenges of adaptation and the challenges of discussing adaptation, including one central dilemma, which I think underlies a lot of the popular thought surrounding this film. And Gorr's going to be our guide to all this. So let's get going. Gorr's on-screen origin is broadly similar to the version we see in print, a faithful man on a nameless world driven to despair by the inactions of the gods he worships, after his family dies to some apocalyptic never-ending drought. In both versions, this man, approaching death, stumbles across two gods, one alive and one dead, takes up All Black the Necrosword from the corpse, and kills the survivor. In both versions, Gorr's next move is to begin an intergalactic crusade, slaughtering gods across existence, and in both, this brings him into conflict with Thor. The climax of their conflict revolves around Gorr's quest to eliminate all divinity across space and time. In the comic, this is to be accomplished via the God Bomb, and in the film, via the wish-granting power of eternity. Broadly then, these stories are similar, but they are not the same. So let's look back at those first 11 issues of Thor, God of Thunder to see why. Here, as is often the case, it makes sense to begin with the beginning. Issue 6 of Aaron's run gives us the God Butcher's origin story, and there's more than a few differences from the filmic version, but the one I want to focus on is the moment where Gorr stumbles upon the gods. It's seemingly been a little while since any of Gorr's own tragedies occurred, and he's wandering, exiled. By sheer chance, he sees something that he isn't really meant to. Great beings falling from the sky. The gods exist. Gorr has peeked behind the curtain, but behind the curtain he sees a great deal more than this basic fact of existence. He sees imperfection. This god is wounded. Aaron never dives into the theology of Gorr's culture, but we can gather from Gorr's words and actions that he understands divinity in the same way most readers will. That God, or the gods, are supposed to be benevolent, eternal, and immensely powerful, functionally omnipotent. I'm sorry if there are any theologians watching this video, because I'm probably mischaracterizing and misrepresenting thousands of years worth of immensely complex thought, but I think the basic set of assumptions we're meant to read this comic with are that a god is a god because of their unthinkable power, and a god is to be worshipped because of their benevolence. They look out for their subjects, as long as their subjects hold them in the proper reverence. There's more to it than this, obviously, but these two factors underpin divinity, and ostensibly justify the ontological hierarchy of existence. So, when Gorr sees an injured god, the last remnants of his faith fall away. The idea of godhood he'd been operating under, the justification for a life spent toiling and kneeling, was partially, at least, a lie. Plus, the god's design is sleek, space-age. What's being communicated to us through this design is the alien quality of this comic's conception of divinity. Godhood isn't what Gorr was raised to believe. It isn't a familiar face, a heavenly father figure. It's a being beyond comprehension, whose world, whose concerns are beyond Gorr and his tribe. This god wasn't guiding his flock, he was fighting another unknown being from an unknown place, not in heaven, but in the cold expanse of space. Judging from the design discrepancy between this god and Gorr's people, it's likely this isn't even one of their gods, just some passing god who got too close to the Necrosword's wielder. This intensifies the sense of alienation. Gorr realizes that even though gods exist, his people aren't special, or unique, or chosen, and neither are the beings they worship. They're just another speck in a vast cosmos. That's not the case in the film. The god Gorr meets isn't some robotic space-age design, he's human-looking, at a glance familiar. There's no sense of galactic vastness here. If anything, the fact that this god looks like us makes this world feel smaller. And it doesn't unsettle us, diminish us, on an ontological scale like the golden god drawn by Asad Rabik in Aaron's book. Also in the film, Gorr is drawn to this godly glade because of the Necrosword. It summons him. In a sense, then he's chosen and directed by a power greater than himself from the start. That's important, remember that. Moreover, he doesn't kill the feasting god because of some profound, intrinsic sense of outraged morality. He kills in rage. The movie seems to suggest that Gorr's violence here is to be understood in part as an act of vengeance for his daughter. In Aaron's comic, things aren't so personal. We've been with this Gorr a lot longer, from his childhood, to his adult self's family life, to his days as an exile, bereft of wife and child. The kill isn't framed as a response to any specific loss, or even loss itself really. As a result, the pain which drives him to decide, the anguish, isn't emotional so much as it is existential. We get the sense that he kills this golden space god because it's become apparent to him that these beings, these gods, don't deserve to be worshipped, don't deserve to dictate the existence of mortal man. Gods exist, and they didn't intervene to save his devout family. So logically, they're either not compassionate, they can't hear the prayers offered to them, or they're not powerful enough to fulfill those prayers. But if all three of those points are not being met, they don't deserve worship. Their rule is tyranny. Think about the point that atheists like to make in our world. Any god who lets a baby die due to a natural disaster isn't a god we should be kneeling to. It's that sort of deal here. In the comic book, this revelation drives the Necrosword into the flesh of that first god, and this is the reason Gorr doesn't stop here. His god butchering is a crusade, an attempt to right the moral scales of the universe. Maybe that's not the only reason Gorr's doing it, maybe by the end he is acting in bad faith, but that's why it starts, and it's always framed as a reason, a primary reason, and one which makes more than a little sense. In Waititi's film, Gorr's mission is one of vengeance. There's a moral aspect here too, but the film doesn't frame this as the central driving force. That's made the clearest at the start and end of his journey. Gorr's first kill, the feasting god in the glade, doesn't ask for help, doesn't reveal some profound unworthiness to hold this station. No, he insults, dismisses, and threatens Gorr. This god isn't killed because on an ontological level he isn't deserving of worship. That's a contributing factor, maybe, but Gorr kills him in self-defense, and the film seems to justify this kill not through some grand, disinterested moral calculus, but because this god's a bit of a prick. Let's fast forward. In the climax, Gorr beats Thor, but doesn't use eternity to complete his mission, to kill all the gods. He uses it to, in the film's words, choose love, and resurrect the daughter he'd been fighting for. In Love and Thunder then, Gorr is not driven by ontological reasons, he's driven by emotional ones. He's driven by love and grief, a fact which is explicitly confirmed in the film's climax. As a result, the complex moral play of Aaron's story is relegated to the background of Waititi's film. It's still there, kind of, but it's scaled down massively, and it operates differently. For example, let's look at the way both works approach the idea that Gorr has a point. Both the film and the comic are aware that Gorr's complaints are kinda well-founded. In the comic, Gorr's right, generally speaking. All the gods we see fail to meet the tripartite criterion we discussed earlier. Either they're too weak, too apathetic, or too blind. As Thor fights to defend the gods, as he chases Gorr across space and time, this realization increasingly nags at his conscience. But the comic does offer a defense of divinity, a reason Gorr's mission can't be truly viewed as an objectively moral one, and that's Thor himself. Thor has the power. He's not omnipotent, sure, but he digs deep here. There's a scene near the end where he single-handedly absorbs and redirects the energy of the God Bomb, saving the lives of every god, greater or lesser, across all space and time. More importantly than raw strength, though, we see that he possesses the power to answer prayer. Not in the snap your fingers and rewrite the universe sense, but throughout the run he has the ability to meet the requests of those who worship him. For instance, returning to the godless world from issue 1 after beating Gorr and liberating his slaves, thus fulfilling the pledge he made at the start of the Gorr saga. To match this power, we also see he has the ability and inclination to hear and answer prayers, a point made explicit in the Gorr storyline, as well as throughout the following issues of Aaron's run. Thor then becomes a paragon of rightful divinity, the only true counter-argument to Gorr's moral position. Thor's personality and abilities vary wildly across his publication history, but within the context of this storyline, Gorr's logic doesn't truly work because of Thor's deeds. That being said, Thor's actions here only counter Gorr's point conditionally. Only so long as Thor keeps acting like this, and keeps being able to hear and answer prayers. Both Aaron and Thor are aware of this though, and as a result, the characters and the story are aware that Gorr can only be truly defeated, their existence can only be truly justified, with continuous and laborious efforts for good. Which, yeah, is far from guaranteed. So there's an uncertain, murky edge to all this moral play and exploration. Victory is temporary, and nothing is absolute. Let's flip back to Love and Thunder. Weirdly, it's made even more apparent here that Gorr's approach may have some essential validity, but there's really no strong counter offered. With the possible exception of our main cast, the gods in this film are just uniformly the worst. It's not a question of whether gods with failures are still gods, whether imperfect divinities can morally exist, it's just a cavalcade of cartoonishly evil deities. And the comic's ultimate defense is entirely absent, because this Thor, while on balance probably still a good guy, is a far cry from the striving paragon of selfless nobility we saw on the page. He starts the film just sitting out a battle in which people are getting hurt until he's explicitly asked to help, and even then he goofs it up, destroying the very temple he was supposed to protect. When the shadow monsters attack New Asgard, he's more concerned with his ex and his ex-hammer than he is with protecting the citizens. And most telling of all, when he learns about the God Butchering, he's really only driven to act after seeing Sif, a personal acquaintance, in danger. That's not at all how it goes with Aaron's Thor. This film kind of makes Gorr's argument better than Gorr does himself, and the only attempt at a counter-argument is the accusation that Gorr's a hypocrite. In the film, this accusation is kind of framed as a gotcha. Gorr has the strength to kill gods, and uses it for bloodshed and slaughter to pay them back for essentially killing his daughter. The way Love and Thunder frames Gorr's quest, we're to understand that he kills for personal reasons as much as moral ones. And yeah, if that's the case, then there is some hypocrisy here. In the film, Gorr's really no better than the gods. Maybe that's why these gods all suck so much. So the film could more easily draw a parallel between them and this vengeance-driven Gorr. That's really the culmination of this film's moral exploration. The wow, maybe Gorr is right strand of thought this film toys with doesn't really go any further after this hypocrisy gotcha. As far as Love and Thunder is concerned, that's resolved here. Maybe the gods do suck, but so does Gorr. And there's really not any time or consideration given to this side of things after the climax, despite a few dangling questions. For one, this Gorr isn't really a god at all. The Necrosword hasn't made him near immortal in this version, instead it's killing him. What's more, as we noted earlier, it was pulling his strings from the start. The film even makes it clear at the end that while Jane has somehow ascended to godhood, Gorr died as a mortal. And in addition to this, even if there is an element of hypocrisy to Gorr's violence, that doesn't mean he's wrong to kill the gods. This film has made it clearer than ever that the Thor of the MCU is not the Thor of the comics, and since we never really see the noble paragon Thor of Aaron's comics in Love and Thunder, there isn't a functioning counter-argument here. The closest thing we get is Jane Foster's Thor, who's righteous, sure, but can't be considered an effective defense of divinity because no matter what her death scene tries to tell us, she's mortal. She was born mortal, mortality shaped her worldview and philosophy, and her impending death from illness is the main driving force for her story here. Awesome character, sure, but she doesn't prove Gorr wrong. It probably won't surprise you to learn that the hypocrisy of Gorr is treated a little more thoughtfully in the comic. For one, the shoe fits a little better here. This Gorr is functionally immortal, and he's been butchering for eons, as opposed to the relatively short spree of MCU Gorr. Even if the butchering is morally right, even if Marvel's gods don't deserve their place on some ontological level, he's unequivocally creating more pain by de-godding worlds like the one we see in issue 1. Worlds where, thanks to his butchering, prayers don't get answered, and people starve. There's a real irony here. Furthermore, there's an implication in the comic that Gorr is not the first to wield the Necrosword, not the first to butcher the gods. That gives rise to an interesting possibility, that perhaps the gods of Gorr's world hadn't just got bored or complacent in their duties. That maybe the reason this species' prayers for rain had gone unanswered wasn't because their gods weren't listening. Maybe they were already dead. Now, in the grand scheme of things, this possibility doesn't invalidate Gorr's point. After all, we see elsewhere that Marvel's gods are often capricious, ignorant, limited in power, sight, and benevolence. But this possibility does add another level of complexity to the story and its themes, and another level of irony to Gorr's mission. Maybe the reason Gorr's gods didn't help his family was that the last would-be hero of mankind slaughtered them in his moral mission, just as he's done to a billion other worlds. So even if Gorr's ends do justify his brutal means, he's spent millennia intensifying the very suffering which drove him to act. That's a really interesting layer. But despite all this, the sense of hypocrisy doesn't utterly invalidate Gorr's point, and the comic recognizes this. There's never a gotcha moment where the narrative decides Gorr's disproven. Even when on Gorr's planet at the end of time, his hypocrisy and bad faith become more and more apparent. Whether or not the gods deserve to exist, whether or not divinity is at all just, remains an open question, despite Thor's nobility, despite Gorr's collapsing semblance of objectivity. Aaron's story recognizes the fact that it can't necessarily close this question, but that's no bad thing. After all, closing this question has been beyond the reach of generations of theologians and philosophers, and with this in mind, that it explores as much as it does is impressive. Returning to the film, if you were to transplant comic book Gorr into the world of the film, into the MCU, he'd be right, almost unequivocally. But since film Gorr's quest is essentially a personal one, since the film doesn't choose to commit to the moral play of Aaron's source material, that's not really a point the film wants to consider. The morality, the ethics, the metaphysics of this story are side concerns. They're not the heart and soul of things in this version of the narrative. Thor is. This film is about Thor. I don't just mean that it's got Thor in the title. Thor the Dark World is a Thor movie, but it isn't about Thor in the way that Love and Thunder is. This film isn't really about the morality of divinity. It's not even really about Gorr and his quest for revenge. The center of this film is Thor's journey toward emotional maturity. This arc is the point around which every other aspect of Love and Thunder is oriented, except from maybe some of the incongruous comedy. Thor's journey from a depressed, jaded, and emotionally closed-off Guardian's tag-along, a lost soul searching the cosmos for a missing part of himself, to somebody who knows what he wants, to be loved, and who's confident enough and secure enough to look for that, even at the cost of getting hurt. Now, does this arc track perfectly with Thor's history in the MCU? Some people don't think so, and I can totally see why. It does feel a little out of step with what we've seen before, but all I'm concerned with here is Love and Thunder, and within the film itself, this arc tracks. Within Love and Thunder, I like this arc. I think it's a good way to reintroduce Jane to Thor's life, and it results in a powerful journey. The last scene at the Altar of Eternity where Thor chooses love, I think that really works. The message lands, and moreover, it's a great message. It's awesome that Thor's quest of self-discovery leads him to find such a healthy, non-toxic masculine identity, one where the heart is worn firmly on the sleeve, where open emotionality is reclaimed. Even if I don't love the new direction endgame set for this character, this resolution is a great counterpoint to the deeply repressed God of Thunder we saw in that film. Getting to to this resolution is Love and Thunder's primary focus, so let's think about Gorr in this context. Thinking back to the earlier portions of this video, I think it's fair to conclude that Bale's Gorr doesn't work as this Gorr, Aaron's Gorr from the comics. The film plays lip service to the complexities and successes of comic Gorr, but it never explores Aaron's vision of him or his mission in fully realized ways. But here's the thing, even if that is true, all we've established is that the comic book is a better version of the comic book than the film is, and that should go without saying. No, while Bale's Gorr doesn't work as Aaron's Gorr, while Waititi's Gorr story doesn't really succeed in any of the ways that the seminal print run did, there is success here in how this character, this story, serves Thor's arc. The fact that this time around Gorr is driven by the personal, that his outrage is more emotional than moral, grounded in a deep and persistent grief for his daughter, means that on some level Gorr's villainy is an evil based in emotional repression, unhealthy coping mechanisms. There's a parallel here to the Thor of Endgame, the Thor who killed Thanos, not because it was the right thing to do, but to get him back. Gorr is a dark reflection of who Thor could have become during that film, or during this film, if he didn't work towards an authentic, emotionally honest existence. And that final conflict with Gorr before the Altar of Eternity is the last push the Odinson needs to complete that journey, to just be with Jane at what appears to be their shared end. And in the end, that's what defeats this Gorr's crusade. Not, as in the comic, an implicit argument for the potential of good, or even some revelation of grand hypocrisy. No, the choice to put love above hate. So this Gorr serves this Thor narrative, and we can also see this functionality when it comes to the Necrosword. The film's version of the artifact is less the quasi-divine symbiote we saw on the page, and more a cursed sword that, according to Gorr, is killing him. It's pretty easy to see where this idea came from. It's to parallel the effect Mjolnir's having on Jane, a hero who chooses to spend her limited time on love, helping others, positivity. On a basic level, Gorr does work in this film, but not to tell his own story. He works as a character to elevate the hero's story. And that's kind of how villains work most of the time in the MCU. Loki was a great villain for the first Avengers film, but his take over the world plot wasn't particularly compelling. No, his success as a villain in that film was due to the challenges he posed to our heroes, both physically and philosophically. There are exceptions to one degree or another, like Thanos, Killmonger, Icarus. But the point I want to make is that the sort of foil role Gorr plays here hasn't held back other villains or other stories from being well received. So why does it seem different this time around? Why do people think Gorr was wasted? That Love and Thunder needed to fundamentally rethink his role in it? I think part of it comes down to the obsession comic book movie Discourse has with the idea of comic book accuracy. Patreon supporters will know my thoughts on this concept, but briefly, I think it's a fairly unhelpful idea, even when viewing straight adaptations. And Love and Thunder is certainly not a straight adaptation of Aaron's run. Because a large part of the community is familiar, at least conceptually, with this original version of Gorr, the discourse around Love and Thunder has possibly unconsciously tended toward attempts to conflate the two, to judge Bale's Gorr against his comic book counterpart, and to understand differences, whether in characterization, story, appearance, or in the roles they play in their respective narratives, as failures. It doesn't help that this Gorr story from Aaron's run on Thor is so highly regarded, goated if you will. The reputation this run has would be hard for any potential cinematic adaptation to live up to, let alone one which pivots away from the central concerns of the run to the degree Love and Thunder does. I'm not saying this to dismiss criticism of the film. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't work about Love and Thunder, and I'm sure you could say the same about its villain. I'm just trying to make sure we're all on the same page about the slippage occurring here between fidelity and quality, pursuing a different course to that of Aaron's run, while nevertheless taking some cues from those pages in terms of narrative and characterization, isn't an inherently flawed approach. It's easy to miss this when you're a fan of the unique qualities of the source material. It's easy to feel like these differences point to unrealized potential, and I'm as guilty as the next guy for forgetting this from time to time. When I was watching Love and Thunder, when it became clear what this film was and what it wasn't, I felt a little bitter that this film threw out the comparatively complex moral play of Aaron's run. Its unapologetically epic tone, and the world building that made this story feel like it was set in a truly massive, truly alien universe. But when I started thinking critically about the film afterwards, I realized it hadn't thrown out any of these. Because Love and Thunder was never an attempt to film Aaron's run, it was its own story, which drew upon Aaron's comics alongside many other inspirations. Because telling a story which differs in key ways from the comic book is fine, so long as the project works on its own terms. And for the reasons we discussed a few minutes back, whatever you think of this film's tonal issues, however many jokes fell flat, and however many times that god-awful helmet CGI took you out of the movie, I think you have to admit that this version of Gorr works for the story the film's looking to tell. On a basic level, coherent choices were made. There is success here. Sure, it's a messy success, because the success is in part cobbled together from building blocks with their own thematic baggage that doesn't always line up neatly with the stuff the film wants to focus on. But given the film's insistent focus on Thor and his arc, given where this character is at the start of this film, given the powerful climax to his journey we get due in part to these changes made to Gorr, we'd be foolish to treat these unadapted aspects as unrealized potential, or to make perfect the enemy of good. The lack of these possible inclusions, the fact that Love and Thunder went in a different direction, doesn't make it a bad film. Or does it? The lack of this quality or that doesn't make Love and Thunder objectively worse, but we're talking about art criticism here. Very, very little of this is remotely objective. If, like me, you read that Gorr story years ago, and went into the cinema expecting or even hoping the film to carry over an aspect it didn't, then of course you're going to feel disappointed. If you genuinely think Love and Thunder would have been improved with more Gorr time, with a slightly tweaked Gorr, or so on, and you've got a well-reasoned argument for why that is, that's a valid response. A pretty reasonable one, actually. Even if it's not a straight adaptation, Love and Thunder is clearly trying to draw on the successes of Aaron's run. I mean, that too almost goes without saying. And if there's a specific direction the film took that's contrary to the Aaron run which you feel doesn't work, it is valid on some level to understand this as a squandering of potential. So that's the Gorr Dilemma. Do we forget about the source material? Do we judge this Gorr on how he interacts with the very different narrative he finds himself placed in? How he services the hero's arc? Or should we approach Love and Thunder with Aaron's run firmly in mind? A yardstick against which to measure the successes, failures, and unrealized potentials of Waititi's project? How do we approach this deeply divisive film, and the captivating, contested figure of Gorr, whose presence looms over our attempts to interpret it? Well, I think in cases like this, disappointment is a valid response, but value judgment isn't. It's entirely fair enough for a comparison to Aaron's run to comics Gorr to cause you to dislike Waititi's version of the character, or indeed his film as a whole. But maybe it isn't fair to then conclude based on this that the film is bad. When we're thinking about adaptation, comparison between the adapting text and the adapted text can be a useful tool. Seeing which aspects a writer or director brought across and which they didn't can help us recognize the successes and failures of each text. But that's all comparison is, a tool. It has its limits, and it never corresponds exactly to quality. So you can think that Gorr works in Love and Thunder, that he's a good, effective villain for the piece, while also disliking the version of the character Waititi ultimately went with. There isn't a contradiction there. Honestly, that's kind of where I'm at. And all this time we've been talking about Gorr specifically, but I think this sort of nuance is essential for productive discussions around Love and Thunder as a whole. This nuance, though, is maybe rarer than it should be in discussions of media like this. If I wanted to be dramatic, I'd say something like, modern fandom culture has a chronic and endemic inability to process or propagate nuance. Luckily, I'm not dramatic, so I won't say that, but I will say that films are complex. Even big-budget studio ones, because even in the most boring, bog-standard production, there's the screenwriters who carve a script out of the infinite potential of the blank page, combining conscious decisions and unconscious desires to make stories and characters. You've got actors, sometimes dozens or more, each with their own unique performance, each containing multitudes. You've got cinematographers, editors, and directors who translate a sequence of physical performances into the language of the visual, figuring out the perfect angle for every sequence and every shot. and somehow transforming a mass of footage into a film. You've got so many more people, so many more decisions behind every single choice, every single millisecond of the finished product. Choreographers, VFX artists, casting agents, producers, and so many more for every film, and then it comes out. And in the age of Twitter and TikTok discourse, these labyrinthine complexities are compressed into bite-sized responses. A film is no longer all of these pieces working together en masse. It's simply trash, or mid, or goated. At best, it's a tier on a tier list, or a digital rating. 7 out of 10. Good job, everyone. I'm exaggerating a little, maybe I am dramatic, but I think most of you will take my point. Too often, there just isn't the nuance. And I think a film like Love and Thunder throws this into sharp relief, because this isn't just some boring, bog-standard production. It's a zany, imbalanced mixture of this, that, and the other thing too. It's a tonal smorgasbord, it's an improv comedy, but it's also an interstellar adventure. It's utterly, annoyingly irreverent, but it's also delicate and sensitive in the moments where that's most necessary. And it presents unique interpretative challenges, like how seriously can we take any of this when the film itself seems entirely aloof, or yeah, the Gorr Dilemma we discussed earlier. So even if you hate this film, I think you'd have to agree that it's a lot. It's so much that this instant, bite-sized discourse is woefully inadequate, even more so than usual. With all this in mind, I don't think it's too much to ask that with Love and Thunder and with everything else that comes afterwards, we try to at least be aware of just how much these currently dominant modes of communication and critique leave out. I'm not asking you to write a video essay every time you want to discuss a new film, but maybe that single word judgment becomes a longer tweet. Maybe that tweet becomes a thread. Either way, it's up to you. But I'll leave you with one final thought to kickstart this process. One final Gorr Dilemma. A fun little bonus treat. We've talked above about the way that the moral play of the comic books isn't so present in Love and Thunder. The gods all suck, and the film really offers no solid defense for them. I suggested that this doesn't sink the movie, because whether or not these gods deserve to exist in the way they do is never really positioned as a central focus, or even a particularly important question to answer. Because this is a loose adaptation, not an attempt at directly translating Aaron's story to the big screen, we shouldn't consider this an omission. It's merely an angle Waititi didn't choose to focus on when constructing this new story. But I wonder, why not? That angle is a compelling one, and there's suggestions that parts of Love and Thunder want to think about this question, just a little. So here's the mystery. Here's my last Gorr Dilemma. Is this sense of meaningful moral exploration absent from the film because of the more personal, emotional focus that the movie ends up taking? Or does the film commit to this emotional focus as definitively as it does because it knows the theological existential questioning we saw in the comic book wouldn't work here, is disallowed by Gorr's rightness in the absence of a pure righteous figure of divinity? Was it Waititi's desire to follow a very imperfect Thor that forced this film to take this path? Or did Waititi's desire to take this path necessitate these imperfections? As Alex Turner so succinctly put it, what came first, the chicken or the dickhead? The chicken in this case being a limited philosophical scope. I don't know. I mean, this question isn't a hugely significant one. For the purposes of analysis, it's less important why we got here than where we are. We can only analyze the film we ended up getting after all, not any one of the literally infinite, potentially different versions which may or may not have existed should different decisions have been made. But I think this is an interesting question to think about regardless. So feel free to discuss it in the comments section, or on Twitter, or in your Discord servers, or to just mull it over in your mind. But this script is already like 3 times as long as I was expecting, so I'll leave you here. Thanks for watching though, I really appreciate it. So go smash that MF like button to pieces, and I'll see you soon. And big up all my patrons on screen now, especially Kevin Douglas.